If you roll the tape back to the early 2000s, you can feel the school bus world starting to creak. The old safety liner FS65 had done its job, but it was tired. Safety expectations were higher. Emissions rules were tougher. And ergonomics, well, nobody in 1988 was thinking about driver comfort on a 6-hour route. Districts were complaining. Poor forward visibility, big blind spots off the nose, a square, dated dashboard, and a chassis that wasn't exactly fun to service. Then came the hammer. EPA 2004 and EPA 2007 emissions. The engines that worked in the 90s weren't going to cut it anymore. Every manufacturer knew they couldn't just bolt a new motor into an old box. They had to rethink the whole machine. Freightliner had bought Thomas-built buses in 1998, and Daimler saw an opportunity. Marry a modern medium-duty truck platform, the M2, with a new school bus body. Standardize the foundation. Modernize the whole Type C segment. Fleets were asking for better rust protection, wider sight lines, an automotive-style cab, clean wiring, and multiplex electronics. The C2 wasn't born to simply replace the FS65. It was built to reset the standard for what a conventional school bus could be. And that's exactly where the philosophy behind the C2 took a sharp turn from everything that came before it. Instead of hanging a school bus body on top of a generic truck frame, as had been done for decades, Thomas and Freightliner started with the M2 business class medium-duty truck and built the new Freightliner C2 chassis as its school bus twin. From there, Thomas didn't fit a body onto it. They designed one around it, shaping every panel, every angle, every sight line to blend seamlessly with the frame beneath. This wasn't a bolt-on bus like an ICCE or a Bluebird Vision. It was an integrated machine from the ground up. You can see that philosophy the moment a C2 rolls into view. The tall, gently curved one-piece windshield gives drivers a wide, open horizon. The front door sits farther forward, cutting down dead space and widening visibility at stops. The rounded composite hood lifts easily and shrugs off small bumps, while the A-pillar corner glass and lower door window carve away the blind spots that haunted older conventionals. Every curve came out of full 3D CAD modeling, a giant leap from the boxy FS65 era. And the payoff was real. Smoother airflow, cleaner sightlines, a tighter, stronger body with fewer leaks. In the marketplace, it landed like a gauntlet. The C2 raised the bar so sharply that every competitor in the Type C class had to rethink what modern really meant. What made that new shape possible was the structure hiding underneath it. Thomas didn't just redesign the skin. They rebuilt the body from the inside out, starting with what they called the Saf-T-Structure. Instead of the patchwork arches and spot-welded ribs older buses relied on, the C2 used one-piece roof bows and reinforced side impact rails, with heavier gauge steel placed exactly where the loads were highest. It gave the bus a backbone, not just a shell. The way those pieces were joined mattered just as much. Thomas moved away from rows of old-style rivets and leaned into adhesive bonding and self-piercing rivets, techniques borrowed from modern automotive manufacturing. Fewer exposed holes meant fewer rust points, more rigidity, and a cleaner, tighter body. Composite panels showed up in key areas too, trimming weight and resisting corrosion in places steel tended to suffer. Inside the plant, the process looked different than the school bus factories of the past. Robotic welding, industrial paint lines, and dedicated curing booths gave the C2 far more consistency. And because the body was built in modules, a damaged panel or corner cap could be swapped without tearing half the bus apart. All of it added up to real-world gains: a quieter ride with fewer rattles, better sealing against rain and winter salt, easier repairs, and a body that held its strength and its shape far longer than the old conventionals ever could. Step inside the C2's cab, and you can tell the same engineering mindset carried straight through from the body to the driver's seat. Thomas didn't guess at visibility. They modeled it in 3D. mapping eye points, sight lines, and blind spot zones long before the first prototype ever rolled out. The result is a view few school bus drivers had ever experienced. That tall, sweeping windshield opens the road wide, and the low, steeply sloped hood lets a driver see children standing just a few feet in front of the bumper. Add the A-pillar corner glass and the lower door window, and the usual blind spots around the loading zone melt away. The cockpit itself feels more automotive than industrial. You get a curved dashboard, clean and intuitive, and a gauge cluster lifted from the Freightliner M2, crisp and modern. Switch panels can be configured several ways, so fleets can place controls exactly where their drivers want them. Comfort wasn't an afterthought either. The driver's seat offers multiple adjustments. The pedals themselves can move, a rare luxury in any school bus, and the steering column tilts and telescopes to fit drivers of all sizes. Put it all together and the experience is unmistakable. Easier maneuvering in tight school zones, safer student pickups, a friendlier learning curve for new drivers, and far less fatigue on those long, early morning routes. From the driver's seat back to the engine bay, the C2 kept evolving in stages, each one shaped by the emissions rules and market pressures of its time. The first chapter began in 2004, with the Mercedes-sourced MBE 900 series, the MBE 906 and MBE 926. Those little German diesels were smooth, quiet, and surprisingly frugal, with plenty of low-end torque for stop-and-go school routes. But fleets found the downside quickly. Parts were pricey, dealer support was thin, and many districts didn't have technicians trained on European-style engines. What looked promising on paper became a maintenance headache in real-world America. When EPA 2007 arrived, the second era took shape. CAT C7 and Cummins ISB/B6.7. The C7 had muscle, no doubt, but it ran hot and carried the kind of emissions hardware that made mechanics groan. By 2010, it was gone. The Cummins, meanwhile, became the C2's backbone, reliable, familiar, easy to service, with parts available everywhere from small-town shops to big city depots. For most fleets, B6.7 was the safest bet in the house. The third era came in the late 2000s, with the Detroit DD5 and DD8, based on Daimler's OM934, OM936 engines. Clean, modern, efficient. Excellent engines in their own right. But without the service network Cummins enjoyed, many districts hesitated, worried about downtime. And then there's the fourth era, LPG and CNG. The PI 8.0-liter and PSI 8.8-liter V8s offered big torque and cheap fuel, while the CNGI SB 6.7G brought quieter operation and cleaner exhaust. Not surprisingly, Texas, Oklahoma, and California became strongholds for alternative fuel C2s. Across all four eras, the message was the same. The C2 could adapt to whatever the industry and the law threw at it. Out on the road, all those engineering decisions showed up in the way the C2 actually behaved. Drivers noticed first. The steering felt light and precise, and for a big conventional bus, the turning radius was surprisingly tight. That made a difference in crowded school lots and narrow suburban streets. Braking depended on the spec. Buses ordered with air brakes had strong, confidence-building stopping power, while some of the early hydraulic brake units could feel a little spongy under a heavy foot. Behind the wheel, the Allison 2500 and 2550 transmissions did what Allisons always do: shift cleanly, hold up for years, and stay out of the shop. The electrical side was a mixed bag at first. Early multiplex systems occasionally acted up, but the overall wiring layout was cleaner and more organized than the old bolt-on designs found in ICCE-style builds. Mechanics appreciated that. Every platform has its weak spots, and C2 fleets saw their share. DEF heaters, NOx sensors, and the occasional moisture-related wiring issue along with the expected quirks from the first-generation MBE and CAT engines. But the C2 had a trump card. Its modular panels were easy to replace, and because it rode on a Freightliner chassis, parts were available almost anywhere in the country. In the day-to-day grind of school transportation, that kind of practicality mattered just as much as horsepower. As districts gained experience with how the C2 drove and held up, they also began to appreciate the layer of modern safety tech built into it. Thomas equipped the platform with electronic stability control, a major step forward for a school bus this size, along with stop-arm cameras and full-body LED lighting that improved visibility in every kind of weather. Underneath, the passive protection was just as serious. The safety net structure, reinforced cage sections, and heavy bumpers gave the C2 a level of crash resilience older conventionals simply couldn't match. For fleets running dozens or hundreds of buses, the technology under the skin mattered too. Systems like Zonar kept accurate logs and inspection data, while Detroit Connect on DD5-equipped units added real-time diagnostic insight. Thomas's Buswise platform tied it together, letting managers track fault codes, battery health, fuel economy, and driver behavior from a central dashboard. All of this paid off where it counted: lower downtime, earlier detection of issues before they stranded a bus roadside, and a level of fleet automation that made big operations run smoother than ever. The push for cleaner fleets eventually opened a new chapter in the C2 story, and by around 2017, Thomas rolled out a version that looked familiar on the outside, but lived in a different world underneath: the C2 Jouley, the brand's first fully electric school bus. Instead of a diesel rumble, it carried a 220-kilowatt electric motor with instant torque, the kind that lets a fully loaded bus climb hills without breaking a sweat. Its 226-kilowatt-hour battery pack delivered a real-world range in the neighborhood of 75 to 85 miles, depending on climate and terrain. And with DC fast charging, a district could bring it back to full in roughly 2 to 3 hours. Some systems even explored V2G capability, selling unused stored energy back to the grid during off hours. For school districts, the benefits were easy to understand. Electric buses cut the noise down dramatically. Drivers could actually hear kids speaking in the back rows. Routine maintenance dropped, with no oil changes, no exhaust systems, and far fewer moving parts. And in neighborhoods where exhaust fumes had lingered for decades, cleaner air around schools became a real, measurable improvement. Still, the Jouley came with its own challenges. Cold weather reduced range, just as it does with any EV, and that heavy battery pack trimmed payload capacity slightly. Even so, the electric C2 showed that the platform wasn't tied to one era or one fuel. It was ready to follow the industry wherever the future led. As the diesel and electric chapters unfolded, the scale of the C2's footprint became impossible to miss. Its story wasn't just about engineering. It was about the sheer number of yellow buses rumbling out into America's neighborhoods every morning. The Freightliner C2 chassis came out of Gaffney, South Carolina, while the body took shape a few hours north at High Point, North Carolina, a plant that became one of the most productive school bus facilities in the country. And the numbers proved it. By 2012, the C2 had already cleared 50,000 units, a milestone most models take decades to reach. Just 6 years later, in 2018, it crossed the 100,000 unit mark, cementing its place as the best-selling Type C school bus in North America throughout the 2000s and into the early 2000s. You could see that dominance on the road. Entire fleets in North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Oregon, Colorado, and plenty more states standardized around the C2 because it solved problems drivers and mechanics had lived with for years. The visibility was the best in the business, the handling was the friendliest for new drivers, and the design, sleek, modern, instantly recognizable, gave districts a bus that looked like it belonged in the 21st century. not borrowed from the late 80s. What Thomas and Freightliner built wasn't just a successful model. It was the bus that redefined what mainstream could look like in American school transportation. 20 years after the first C2 hit the road, Thomas signaled the next chapter with something familiar in shape but thoroughly updated underneath. The C2 evolved, slated for 2025. Built on the new M2 Plus platform, it brings a fully digital instrument cluster, a steering column shifter, and a far more advanced smart electrical architecture built around modern CANB networks. Even the front fascia gets a subtle refresh. Nothing radical, just enough to tell you this is the next generation, not a different bus entirely. Those changes aren't cosmetic. They strike at the one weak point older C2s were known for: wiring complexity. By modernizing the electrical backbone, Thomas pushes the conventional school bus firmly into the digital era, making diagnostics cleaner, modules smarter, and long-term reliability stronger. And that feels fitting for a machine with a legacy as wide as its windshield. For 2 decades, roughly 2005 to 2025, the C2 became the school bus American kids grew up with, the same way the International 3800 defined the 90s. It shaped the look of the industry, set the standard everyone else chased, and became part of the background of daily life, in TV shows, church vans, college shuttles, and fleets from coast to coast. If you've enjoyed this look back at the bus that reshaped an entire generation, hit like. Share your memories in the comments, and make sure to subscribe. There's a lot more history still rolling down the road.